everybody. Welcome to Moment of Presence. This is Michelle with Moksha Grace Coaching. And as you can see, I have another amazing guest with me today. And we are going to have a wonderful conversation about food and nutrition. This is Duna Zurcher.
Yes.
Duna Zurcher. Duna is an integrative nutrition health coach who specializes in emotional eating. I'm sure that we all have had some type of emotional eating in our lifetime. And her mission is to help other women transform their emotional eating habits into mindful nourishment, breaking free from the food guilt and body shame, and focusing on what's important to them, like their passions and their dreams. So, Duna, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Absolutely. And, those that are joining us live, make sure that you put in the comments that you're here because we can't always see who's here depending on what platform you're on, and let us know where you're from. Definitely want to make this as engaging and amazing as it was yesterday. We had over 75 comments, so it was great. It was very engaging. Ask your questions, talk to us, and let us know what you want to know more of. So we're going to be talking about intuitive eating and cravings and comfort food. I was just sharing with Duna before we got started that one of my comfort foods is a grilled cheese sandwich. God, there's a lot to go with a grilled cheese sandwich. It was my favorite meal in school too, when it was grilled cheese sandwich day. Like that was my favorite day. And it was made very differently than the ones I made at home. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, and then we'll jump into the bigger topic.
Sure. So, like Michelle said, I'm an emotional eating health coach, and I became an emotional eating health coach because I struggled with my relationship with food, my body, and emotions my whole life. I always thought that I had a problem with food. I was not able to stick to a diet, and of course, if I'm not able to stick to a diet, I am the problem. So that were the beliefs that I had. And because I was not as thin as society tells you you should be in order to be healthy, so that created a very unhealthy relationship with my body. And after I realized that I actually never learned how to feel my emotions, how to express my emotions. So a few years back, I saw that all this was holding me back from having the life that I wanted. So I started my healing journey. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And I saw that all these three things, the relationship with body, food, and emotions, were just the perfect storm to be an emotional eater. So I started my healing journey. And because I know how hard it is to feel at war with your body, feel at war with food, and have constant food and body thoughts, I made my mission to help other women break free of that, because that sometimes we are not even aware of it or conscious of it, but it can hold us back truly from being the person we want to be and really create the life that we want.
Yeah, yeah. And so what do you think was the biggest turning point for you, or the biggest change that came from this?
Mm-hmm. The first thing was to bring to awareness the problem, because I did think I had a problem with food and my body, but I never knew. I thought that, of course, I feel emotions. Sometimes I feel happy, sometimes I feel sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I feel emotions, but how do I deal with them? I never sat and thought about that. So, and in a very bad moment in my life, because my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and he passed away. And I was with him the last
Mhm.
month of life, and that was the turning point where I saw that emotions were what was making me feel out of control around food, but that wouldn't happen if I had had a healthy relationship with food. So it's complex because it's not only one thing, right? It's not being able to deal with emotions plus having this unhealthy relationship with food, and all together. Yeah, so that was a little bit my turning point where I said that's enough.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for sharing that. Um, Death definitely uh, will do that, and you want comfort food. You want to bring in, even because it reminds you of things.
Yeah.
I was sharing with the grilled cheese story, and my mom would help me make grilled cheese. Um, Good morning, Renee, and thank you for sharing us out as always. Um, and it's interesting because when you and I don't want this to be a big conversation about death. We've had a lot of conversation the last couple of weeks about that, but uh, the Greeks have a very different type of funeral,
Hmm.
where we eat.
Yes.
Like that's what you do.
Mhm.
The day, I think it's the day of the funeral, you eat fish, but then after you can have like a regular meal, but there's always cookies. Like there's
Mhm.
always, some type of a cookie or koliva, which is,
Mhm.
um, and Krista knows the recipe and she can make it very well. But they give it out at church for the 90 days after someone
Mhm.
passes, and it's berries, wheat berry salad, and it's delicious with a lot of powdered sugar on top of it. And it's very good for you. It's delicious. But food also goes hand in hand with different rituals and different traditions, and different cultures have different reasons for eating certain things. And so, I guess where I'm going with this is, what is a craving versus a celebration? Like, how do you suggest that people try to start figuring out what the
Mhm.
differences are?
Mhm. So I would say that what's the first thing that's very important actually is to understand the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger.
Mm.
That's the first thing, because cravings can be physical cravings, like being dehydrated, for example. Sometimes
Mhm.
you forget to drink water because you are busy, and then and then suddenly you have a craving, and it's actually because maybe you need to drink water. But they can also be emotional, right? So I think the first thing, it's very important to understand the difference between physical and emotional hunger. And how can we do this? Well, I have a little training about this, but um, our physical cues, physical signals might be different from one person to another. But in general, your stomach is grumbling. You might feel. For me, for example, I get headaches. If I don't eat for a long time, I get very bad headaches. So physical hunger comes slowly.
Mhm.
You A lot of things feel like, oh yeah, this feels good, and when you eat, you feel satisfied, and there's no guilt, no shame. You just ate and you move on.
Mhm.
When it's emotional hunger, it comes suddenly. It's
Mhm.
and it's intense, is specific. You want a specific thing, and if you don't have that thing, you might even get angry, anxious, and you feel out of control. And
Mhm.
even when you eat that, you are not really going to feel satisfied. Why? Because it's not really food what you're needing. It's an
Mhm.
emotional hunger. It's something else that you need. So I think it's very important to first really understand the difference between these two things and get acquainted with, oh, how do I feel hunger and how do I feel fullness? Because it's not about what others say. It's about reconnecting with ourselves, with our own signals. Because by dieting and having all these external rules that a
Right.
lot of people have, with counting calories, apps, macros, schedules, we are completely disconnected from our body. And we don't remember. How do I
Mhm.
feel hunger? I don't remember. Well, that's the first step.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Hi, Jenny. Good morning. Glad you're here. This is exactly what we're talking about, is the emotional eating. So, I have this thing where if I have something sweet,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely have to have something salty,
Oh, okay.
and vice versa. So if I
Mm-hmm.
have something salty, I have to have something sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten to the point where if I make popcorn, I just throw some chocolate in there and then I can just do both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how would I know if that's an emotional
Mm-hmm.
craving or if that is my body telling me that it desires or wants,
Mm-hmm.
that type of nutrition?
Okay. So let's imagine that you take the popcorn and you do not put chocolate chips. How are you going to feel? Are you going to feel deprived? Yes or no?
It wouldn't be chocolate chips, it would be snow caps, and I would
Okay.
I would feel very deprived. Matter of fact, if I go to a movie theater and they don't have snow caps, I
Uh-huh.
get very upset. So now I just bring my own snow caps.
So you found your own way. So
Yes.
um, a lot of times it's looking at um, really tapping into your intuition. How does it feel to me to put that there, the snow caps, wherever it is?
Hmm.
How does it feel? How does it make me feel internally, physically, emotionally? If
Hmm.
I don't put it, will I feel deprived? If you're going to feel deprived, we don't want you to feel deprived,
Hmm.
because deprivation leads to overeating and feeling out of control around food.
Okay.
And this is very important, and this is a very big problem with diets, because we engage in diets trying to control ourselves around food, and what happens is the exact opposite, and science backs this out. And like 95% of people that do diets and lose weight, they will gain it again in five
Yes.
years, right? We know that. And this is because of restriction leads to deprivation, deprivation leads to overeating.
Hmm.
So I think this about knowing, should I eat this or should I not? This is really, I am not you. You are your own expert. And the only thing I can do is ask you questions and guide you and support you.
Mm.
But I cannot make the decisions for you,
Right.
because you are your own expert. Even though you don't believe it, because you are so disconnected, we are so disconnected from our bodies and our intuition. We need to establish that trust again,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we've lost that trust.
Yeah.
So I would ask questions. Okay, so what happens if I do this? What happens if I don't? And really ask myself, do I feel hunger or do I not?
Hmm.
And and navigate the craving or the need of that, trying to understand what that food is giving us, if it's really physical or emotional, and what happens if we don't have it.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And going back to the popcorn, am I wanting the popcorn, or is it just because I'm at the movies and that's
Mhm.
just what you do
Yeah.
is have popcorn? Like,
Well, that's a part of an emotional craving.
yeah.
Emotional cravings, being like, our mood affects our food choices, and vice versa. Our
Hmm.
food choices affect our mood. And there is social and cultural cravings, and that's one of them. You
Hmm.
go to the movies and you eat popcorn, not because you're hungry, but because it's what you do at the movies. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you do it and then you feel guilty and ashamed for what you did.
Hmm.
Then it becomes a problem. Or you go twice a day to the movies and you are eating popcorn twice a day, and then you're sick. That's a problem too. But everything is, I need to look inside, and how do I feel, how it makes me feel physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Hmm.
Because if I go to the movies and I eat popcorn and then I'm like, I wasn't really hungry, how do you feel after? Do you feel guilty and ashamed?
You just
Then okay.
gross and full and
Well, okay, so you take that, and then maybe next time you'll buy a smaller pack of popcorn, or not, but you can take the experience
hmm
and learn from that. and
Right.
then make an intentional decision next time you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And as far as teaching yourself, so, with emotional eating,
Hmm.
you're upset, or you're depressed, or you're angry, um, and you go into the kitchen to grab whatever it is that makes you feel better.
Hmm.
How do you, suggest that somebody starts uh, turning that behavior around?
Hmm. So I actually have an ultimate guide to end emotional eating where I explain all this and what it's where there is first you look at your specific cravings because like I said earlier, we are all different, and this is called bio individuality, and what works for you might not work for me, and what triggers you might not trigger me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have cravings of grilled cheese. I have cravings of um, uh, bread with butter and honey because that's what I was given when I was a kid. And suddenly, sometimes I miss my dad, and I'm like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay, and it's okay. I associate that with my dad, and I needed to feel more connected with him for a little bit. How do I feel after that? Guilty and ashamed? Problem. Okay, no problem. Um, so, sorry, what was the question?
How do you go about, once you've identified that it's emotional eating
Mhm.
and you want to stop doing that?
Yes. So
How do
you
you change it?
Yeah, so you first identify your own triggers, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to look at the common triggers, how they affect you. Common triggers being stress. How much stress is there in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Sleep. How do you sleep? Because have you noticed that if you don't sleep well in the morning, the food choices you make are usually not the best ones? At least I've seen that with me.
Right.
If I don't sleep well in the morning, I'm more like, French toast and, and my food choices are not going to be as good. Um, life imbalances. And this
Mm-hmm.
is a very important thing. What do I mean by this? Um, Life, it has very different areas:
Right.
relationships, finances, education, movement,
Mm-hmm.
social life. There's different areas. When something doesn't work in one of these areas, we find an imbalance that can be reflected in our plate. For example, you have a toxic relationship with your partner or in your family or wherever. You're not going to be healthy and happy because obviously we are social beings. So if you have toxic relationships, that's going to affect your happiness and your well being. And you might turn to food in order to try to find some kind of balance. So life imbalance is also one of those common triggers. Um, and once you know these things, and you need a lot of patience and work to understand these things. It's not, oh, like this. I In the guide that I was mentioning, you log your food for a week. It's not logging how much I ate, the macros. No, no, no. What's important is what triggered my eating, how I felt in the morning, in the moment, and how I felt after. And then I also offer a framework, and it's like, okay, imagine that, like you said earlier, I feel the urge to eat. Suddenly, I'm angry or something. I go to the fridge and I just grab something. Well, stop there. Let's stop. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the first thing, and it's not easy because it's an
Yeah.
automatic response. So, the
Right.
first thing, really, in all the healing, I believe that self awareness, it's really the first step. If you are
Yeah.
not aware of your body, your actions, and your thoughts, it's going to be very difficult to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
First thing, you need to bring a lot of awareness, and that can be very, very uncomfortable because then you discover things about yourself or your thoughts or your actions that you're like, I don't really like that, but and you have to confront that, and it can be very uncomfortable, but it's so worth it because then
Yeah.
you can change. Then you can change those things that you don't like. So let's say that so first thing, you need to really stop and then check with yourself. Am I physically or am I emotionally hungry? In
Mm.
in that guide, there's like questions to ask yourself to know a little bit more. So
Mm-hmm.
how am I feeling physically? Am I hungry? In a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry am I? And then if what do I feel like eating? Is it only this, or there's other things that I could eat? It doesn't mean that if it's only this that feels good, it's emotional hunger, because sometimes I feel just like having chicken because I like chicken. It's okay. Um, I want chicken with fries, but fries, there's nothing.
Fries.
I love fries. There's nothing bad with fries. What happens if I don't put the fries? Will you feel deprived? Yes. Then don't remove them. But add a salad if you want to make it a
Mm-hmm.
little more balanced. So that's if you see that it's physical hunger.
Yeah.
But now if you say, "Oh, I there's something there and I I feel angry." That's how I feel. I feel angry and I want those chips because they are crunchy and ooh, right. So in this guide, before this, I will have prompted you to create an emotional toolkit for yourself, which means a list of things
Mm-hmm.
you can go to when you feel that emotional. And it can be complex things, or it
Right.
can be very, very simple things. Go for a walk, take
Yeah.
5 deep breaths, have a
Mm-hmm.
warm bath, put some candles, journal, call a friend, do
Mm-hmm.
jumping jacks, yoga. I don't know. It can be so many little things. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so you say, oh, yes, it is emotional hunger. So you go to that toolkit, you choose one thing to do for 10 minutes. And after those 10 minutes, go back. Do you still feel that you want to eat that?
Mm.
No. Oh, great. So whatever you did helped you. You nourished the part that needed to be nourished. You go on with your life. You go back and say, I actually still want that brownie or those chips or whatever. Okay. It's okay. You already tried something else. In the past, the first thing you would have done is eating. And
Right.
this time, you brought awareness to the fact that you were doing that. You asked yourself a lot of questions. You did something else to nourish your body,
Mm-hmm.
but that was not, you still want that. It's okay. Eat
Yeah.
it. Do it mindfully, not in front of the TV that then you're like, oh, did I eat it or not? No, eat it, putting all your senses in it,
Right.
and then move on
Mm-hmm.
with your day. And it seems very easy explaining it this that like this, but it takes practice and you can't do it overnight, because
Yeah.
also there's a lot of beliefs that we have around emotions, around food, around our body, and around ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
all those beliefs might hold us back as
Yeah.
well. So it's that is the general framework, but of course, depending on each person, there's deeper work that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the deeper emotional piece, or even tapping into your intuition, that's the part that for me has helped the most,
Mhm.
when you start listening from within.
Yeah.
So that way, when you do open the refrigerator and you're angry,
Hmm.
and then you're like, "Ugh, there's nothing in here that I want," and you close it, and then you look at the chip bag, and the chip bag is going to make a lot of noise when you open it. And then every chip is going to crack and crunch. And um, but when you start asking yourself those questions,
Hmm.
am I really hungry,
Hmm.
or am I bored, or am I angry, am I
Hmm.
upset, is this what I really want, or is there something else that could satiate me? um, and so it's always interesting, because then when you do process it and you can feel it, your
Hmm.
body may actually just want an apple.
Exactly.
That crunches too. And then you can chuck the core, across the yard if you have to. Um, but yeah, I can absolutely, um, I can see and totally understand, as you're eating chips, Renee. Very good. Uh,
Well,
are
enjoy
you
them, Renee.
yes, yes, yes. Are you angry? Are you happy eating the chips? And feel so I read this book and it talked about the intuition, and it talked about when you feel lighter and when
Mhm.
you feel heavier. And
Mhm.
so one of the exercises that it teaches you in the book is to go out to a restaurant, look at a menu, and
Mhm.
you can do this with your refrigerator too. And the first thing that your eyes go to is what your body wants.
Mhm.
You may not even have ever had it before, but
Yeah.
for some reason, your body's telling you that it wants this. So
Mhm.
try it.
Mhm.
Try it. Start listening and tapping into your intuition and practice, because the more you practice with your intuition, the more in tune you're going to get, and
Yes.
you're going to get used to listening.
Yes.
But that lighter and that heavier
Mhm.
helps so
Mhm.
much when you start noticing the difference
Mhm.
between the two. Um, any questions with it, anybody out there listening? Is there something that you want to ask Duna, or a situation? Because I love this topic. Um, so are there are there good cravings? Or what we were talking about, the good cravings, I guess, is when our body's actually telling us what it needs.
Uh-huh. It is interesting. One day I told someone, "Oh, I was craving veggies," and they were like, "What? Who craves veggies?" Well, that happens. And it's really like we were talking earlier, it's really like there was a lack of nutrients in my body. I went for 2 weeks on a road trip, and it was New Orleans. So, soul food. And
Lots of soul
as
food.
much as so good, at some point I was just like, I can't. I need, please, veggies. I need a salad. I need green. And I was really feeling sluggish. I had headache all day long. It was really bad. And it was very interesting because then I was like, okay, wait a second. Why am I feeling like this? Why
Hmm.
am I feeling so sluggish? I'm on vacation. I should just be thriving and. And then I was like, look at what you've eaten. You've
Hmm.
been trying different foods that you're not used to, but then you haven't really given your body lighter foods and more fresh foods, not
Right.
so many sauces and calorie dense foods. So that was very interesting to me because it is possible to crave um,
Hmm.
the good foods. I don't want to we don't categorize food in good or bad. All food has a purpose, because when we categorize it, then we demonize. Then it's when, oh,
Yes.
I've been good, I've been bad. You are not bad because you ate brownie. You are bad if you hurt people, if you kill someone. That's being bad.
Right. Eating a
Eating
brownie,
brownie,
you're
it's
okay.
not being bad. So it's very important. And the same way with emotions, to me, they are not positive or negative, because who wants to feel negative things? Even though life is 50-50, when, oh no, sadness, it's bad, anger, it's bad, then you feel, oh, maybe I shouldn't be feeling those things. So I think it's very important to be careful with how we categorize things,
Hmm.
food and emotions in this case. So, and the good cravings you were mentioning, a lot of times when you say you need to trust your intuition more for to know what to eat, then what people will say is, well, I'm only gonna eat junk food because that's what I'm craving constantly. And that might be true at the beginning, because if you have been depriving yourself for so long and suddenly you give yourself that permission, your body's like, oh my God, I can eat all this. Give me, give me, give me, give me. But then when your body understands that, oh, there's no more restriction, I can have it whenever I want.
Hmm.
Oh, okay, okay. Then I can crave other things. Like I can bring balance again.
Right.
And it's very scary, because if I love junk food, pizza and burgers and fries, I love that, and I still love it, don't get me wrong, but I don't crave it as before, because now I give myself permission to eat it whenever I want, not once a month, not once a no, it's if I feel like having it, I will tune in and see, is it really, all the things, the steps you do to make sure that you're not just making a non-intentional decision.
Yeah.
So there, to me, those are good cravings, in the sense that all cravings actually are giving you information. So there are
Mhm.
actually all good. And we joke about craving, saying, "Oh, I'm craving chocolate. It's my days." Or we joke about it, but it it can feel very, very uncomfortable, and it can feel out of control, and it can bring anxiety and anger. So even though we joke about cravings, they are information. So it's very important to listen to them and try to understand them instead of judging. "Oh, I'm craving pizza." Okay, that's okay. Bring curiosity instead of self-judgment. Trying to understand and and be more self-compassionate with ourselves, because we tend to judge ourselves so much,
Yeah.
and that creates more being uncomfortable with oneself.
Well, and I'm so glad you said that because I actually wrote that down, that I wanted to talk, because it's you're judging your choices, you're
Mhm.
judging your food, you're judging how you're feeling, you're
Yes.
judging whether you're good or you're bad
Mhm.
because you decided to have whatever it was that you want. So stop judging yourself and just listen, get curious, like you said,
Mhm.
ask yourself, why do I want it? Is
Mhm.
it for a good reason, a bad reason? Because I do believe that there's an energy around what you're eating. Like you said, you were
Mhm.
on vacation, you had vacation food.
Mhm.
That's not something to judge yourself or be mad at yourself about. We go on vacation to try food in other lands or other
Yes,
places.
exactly. Mhm.
And so, why would you? I had a client one time and she came back and she's like, I gained 5 pounds on vacation and I ate way too much and I'm so mad at myself. And so, she was almost like ruining the memory of her vacation
Totally.
because she was beating herself up. And I was
Mhm.
like, but did you enjoy every bite when it went in your mouth? And she was like, oh, the French toast at this restaurant. And so she's explaining the food and it sounded so delectable and so
Mhm.
wonderful. And I'm like, so you lose the 5 pounds. Now you go and you work out, but you had the
Yeah,
experience. You
exactly.
had that wonderful, wonderful experience.
Mhm.
And you got to taste things and experience whether it was the land, the culture, whatever,
Mhm. Yeah.
but don't judge yourself for it.
Yes. Yes.
Enjoy it.
Mhm.
And I've heard that when you do, and I believe this was Abraham Hicks when she was talking about Esther eating ice cream or something, and she was like, and I enjoyed every spoonful, and it's versus I'm going to eat this because I'm upset or I'm mad.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, if you're gonna lay on the pounds, it's gonna go straight to your hips. Or cheese,
Mhm.
love cheese. I'm cutting that Parmesan cheese at the end of the day. That's like my one of my favorites. Like I
Mhm.
love doing that. But I also believe that it's everything in moderation too.
Mhm.
You know, don't eat the whole block. Have a couple pieces, put it away.
Mhm.
The family laughs at me because I have these little bowls, and so if I want chips or trail mix with sweet and salty, I'll pour it in a little bowl. And
Uh-huh.
that's not because I don't want to carry around the
The-
crinkly bag. It's a little bit of portion control. Like I don't
Mhm.
want to sit down and eat the whole box of Oreos, but I'll take two
Mhm.
and be happy.
Yeah.
And
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 if after you want one more, that's okay. The
that's
problem is if you
okay.
want one more and one more and one more and one more, then let's get curious what's going on.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mm.
This is so good. This is so good. Um
I wanted to just say
yeah.
about the vacation thing, because this is something that to me helped me a lot. Because I did a course with an intuitive eating health coach, and she said something that really stuck to me, because she said the way you eat on vacation, 1 2 weeks you are eating differently,
Hmm.
okay, for 1 or 2 weeks, and you feel guilty and ashamed and all those things. Big picture, look at the whole life you still have in front of you. Let's say that you still have to live until you're 80 years old, more or less. How many meals do you still have in front of you?
Yeah.
And do you really think that those 1 or 2 weeks in vacation are going to ruin your whole health and everything? No. And this might be silly, but to me, it was like, oh, that's right. I'm just focusing
Mhm.
on now, when in reality, first, it's not my way of eating. Like you were saying, in vacation, you eat differently. So when I get back home, I will get back to my normal way of doing things. And my weight or wherever, it's going to get back to my normal.
Yeah.
So I think that if we think about all the meals that you still have in front of you where you can make very good intentional choices, that takes a little bit of weight away from that guilt and shame in
Yeah.
vacation.
And that's a great point. And that's a great point. And sometimes on vacation it's not even just about the eating. It can be about the drinking. It can
Hmm.
be, the partying, the staying up late. It's all of those, all the rules
Hmm.
go out the window. But why are you judging yourself?
Exactly.
If you need a vacation away from all of that, and maybe you should give yourself some time when you're at home,
Hmm.
whether it's a weekend. We did I guess it was in my 40s, and we did the fit, I think it was Fit for Life or Body for Life or one of those. And they were big on, you have a cheat day.
Hmm.
So you eat really good for 6 days, you stay on the plan, but then you get a cheat day.
Mm.
And I think it was supposed to be a cheat meal, but I think at some point my husband ended up doing like a cheat day. And I was like, if I've already broken my habit, one of my biggest habits that I had to break from back then was soda. Like I loved Pepsi,
Hmm.
just it was so good, or sweet tea.
Hmm.
And breaking that was challenging.
Hmm.
And once you break it, for me, if I went out and had a Pepsi, I was like, oh, then I want another one. And
Uh-huh.
I I was like, no, I'm not doing cheat days. Like,
Hmm.
no, because I'm not going to go backwards and then have to do it all over again.
Hmm.
And so I kind of got rid of that.
And that's the problem with cheat days, because a lot of time, well, I've always also done that, and I really saw that my cheat meals were programmed binges. I would be the whole week thinking, oh, on Saturday I'm gonna eat this, this, and this, and this. And I would end up eating a quantity of food that when I now look back, I'm like, oh my God, like two lava cakes after a pizza and fries. Who eats that? Oh, and with ice cream, of course. You give me that now, and I would be like, what do you want to do, to kill me or what? So, and I would be able to do that because of the feeling of deprivation. When I ate that, I was just shoveling it down because I felt so deprived, and then I
Mhm.
felt so sick. So the cheat days, we need to be very careful because of it being binge planned binges, and because the guilt and shame, if you are binging, the guilt and shame is going to come
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
even if you've been good before. And
Right.
then there's the all of nothing mentality. Oh, I cheated. I ate a little bit of chocolate. I already cheated. Oh, let's just keep going the whole day. And then you eat the whole day and you feel sluggish, you feel uncomfortable, you feel
Hmm.
full and guilty and ashamed. And then let's go back to the diet, let's go back to the deprivation, restricting, and then
Yeah.
and then it becomes a cycle. So
Yeah.
of course everyone needs to find what works for them. For you, you said that you don't drink Pepsi anymore because if you do, then you fear that you're going to keep drinking.
Hmm.
Before, I would drink Cokes almost every day until I was like, oh, but this is not really good. But we need to be very careful between food rules and food preferences.
Yeah.
As I started my healing journey, now even I eat brownies and all that, but I usually do the healthy version. Am I doing the healthy version because I don't want to put on weight? Not at all. I am doing the healthy version because usually I like to eat things that have little ingredients, the most natural possible,
Hmm.
to have the least chemicals and nasty things in my body.
Yeah.
So it's a food preference. But if
Yes.
you give me a brownie that has all the sugar and all that, I will eat it very happily too. But in my house, I prefer to do that as a food preference because I see my body as a vessel to live this life. So
Hmm.
I need to take care of it so I can enjoy this life at its fullest with a body that functions, the most time possible. So, and my way to doing that is all the things that go into my body, I try them to be as natural as possible. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking only about food, I'm even talking about moisturizers and all things like that.
Yeah.
So, but
It's
it's very important, sorry, to be careful with food preferences and food rules.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. And my daughter Krista is very she does our shopping for us because I would go to what I'm comfortable with, what I've known my whole life, which is
Mhm,
something like Duncan Hines,
mhm,
where Krista has very much taught us that you can make all of that from scratch with very good ingredients
mhm.
that are non GMO and non artificial. What, what I Krista put in the chat what are that everything has now. Oh, bioengineered. Everything is bioengineered. No matter where you go, even the health food stores, if you don't read the ingredients list, there's something that's bioengineered in it. And it's very hard now to find things and non GMO. And so, uh, but that comfort part of me is like, but there's nothing like a Duncan Hines chocolate cake, like, because that's my inner child. And so then having to look at that and go, okay, why is my inner child having a temper tantrum?
Mhm,
And why is it that I feel that I need that comfort of that
mhm,
specific thing? And I love looking at it like that. And
mhm,
I know that there's other things to look at with food, even with chakras. So
mhm.
if you're having an issue with your root chakra, you
Yes,
should be eating red foods. And if it's something to do with your solar plexus, then
yeah.
start eating, some yellow things, some yellow food. And it's always fascinated me. The more you go into it, the
Yeah.
more you learn how it's all connected.
Yes, yes. However, we also need to be careful with not going through the other part of the spectrum where we get obsessed
Mm,
with everything needs to be clean and healthy and because this can be very harmful as well. Because by trying to be super super healthy, we might cut social connections because I know I don't go to restaurants because this or that, or judge other people because we think that our way is the best way, and then people that don't. So it's all extremes are bad, I would say. So it's very important to also be careful with that. And when we look at ingredients and all that, there is this possibility where we get a little bit obsessed with some ingredients. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I will challenge a lot of our viewers. I've challenged them before, and I've challenged our clients. If you want to kind of tap into how much you judge,
Hmm.
because a lot of people are like, I don't judge anybody. Go to the grocery store,
Uh-huh.
walk down the aisles, and find and every time you look in someone's basket, in their cart, and you're like, they're buying that. See how many times, or you look at what shoes are they wearing, or what are they reaching for on the top shelf, that
Hmm.
the cookies, or those. It's so interesting
Yes.
to go to the grocery store and just observe yourself.
Hmm.
Don't judge yourself for it, but just be curious and
Hmm.
make a game out of it, and almost hear like a ding ding ding
Yeah.
every time you judge,
Hmm.
and you're going to learn something about yourself.
Yes.
And if you're judging other people that much,
You're judging
you're
yourself.
judging yourself that much too.
Yeah. Yes.
And so you can only start with yourself, start
Hmm.
with stopping the judgment of yourself, and then you'll notice that
Yeah.
you'll stop judging other people as
Yeah.
well.
That's very interesting because yesterday I think I saw a video about this and where they were saying that if self acceptance
Mm-hmm.
starts with other people too. You cannot accept yourself if you don't accept other people too.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to the same thing. You cannot not judge other people, or you cannot not judge yourself if you are still judging other people. This is very, very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because what we see can be a reflection of our own
Absolutely.
struggles and the way we see ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Because when you're judging someone else, there's something about you
Yeah.
that they're reminding you of.
Yes.
They're reminding you of something about yourself that you're not happy with.
Hmm.
And it's a
Yeah.
hint. All of life is it's
Hmm.
giving us little hints and leaving breadcrumbs for us to
Hmm.
figure out our journey. But if we're not paying attention, we're just going to walk all over it.
But it's so sad that we were not taught this from a young age, right? Because as an adult, it's like, how, what? It's difficult to get your head around like these things, or
Hmm.
even the fact that you are not your thoughts. You can choose the thoughts that you have, and you can
Hmm.
choose how to act. I wish I was taught this when I was a kid,
Oh,
because I've identified with my thoughts so many times, and that has hurt me so much,
yeah.
thinking that, oh, if I think this, then therefore I am this, and then I, and when I was told you are not your thoughts and you have the power to change your thoughts and to choose how to act, I was like, it, okay. And that to me changed a lot of things,
Yeah.
with emotions, with food, and in my life in general, really.
Yeah. Well, and I love how you explain the changing your relationship with food because I think that that's huge, and I think that everybody on the call that's going to listen now and listen later um, should think about that. You
Yeah.
know, what is your relationship to the different foods that you're eating
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
and the foods that you're not eating?
Hmm. And
Yeah.
and really, I think it's also important that people understand that emotional eating is a natural part of life and of being human. We all do it from time to time. The problem is when it's our only coping mechanism, and when it's followed by guilt and shame.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's very important. So when you are eating in response to emotions, when you label food and then you feel out of control around food, so it's things to pay attention to, but also understanding that you are a human, you are not a robot. So yeah, if you are going through a bad breakup and you eat a pint of ice cream, I mean, yeah,
Eat the
you're
pint
very
of ice
sad.
cream.
Exactly. Is that something you're doing every day, every week? Okay, then it's
That might be a problem.
exactly.
But if you're just eating it, then it's okay. Just like my snow caps and popcorn. Um, Thank you so much for all of this, Duna. Where can people find you and learn more about you and your work that you're doing?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook, Mindful Health with Duna, and I have my website, mindfulhealthwithduna.com. And if they are interested, I have a free guide, the ultimate guide to end emotional eating. They can ask for it on Instagram, on Facebook, or mindfulhealthwithduna.com/end emotional eating, so they can download it.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sure that we will put as many of those links as we can in the description or comments and make sure that everyone gets that. Um, One thing that you want to leave everybody with today?
It's difficult to put it all in one. Just that it's not their fault if they feel out of control around food. They might feel that it's their fault for not being able to stick to a diet or control themselves, but nothing further from the truth. You have beliefs around food, around your body and emotions. They hold you back, and you can heal your relationship with food, your body, and emotions. And when you do that, the world opens up for you, because all those things are not holding you back anymore. So something different is possible.
Beautiful. And I will end it with what I always tell everyone is it's about choices. And you can have a good day or a bad day, a good meal, a bad meal.
Yeah.
It is all up to you. and choose wisely, my friends. And I will see you next week. And thank you so much again, Duna, for joining us. And I think this is a great conversation. So,
Thank you so much for having me. It was
of
great.
course, of course. And thanks for everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.